Welcome to the Official Hacks podcast from Max and Pineapple Street Studios. I'm Lucia Aniello, creator, showrunner, EP, writer, and director of Hacks. Joining me are the other wonderful creators, Paul W. Downs.
Hello.
And Jen Statsky.
Hey.
My best friends. And we're back with the third season of Hacks. On this podcast, we'll be talking about every episode together. And over the course of the season, we'll be joined by some of our amazing cast and crew. Later in this episode, we're joined by legendary costume designer Kathleen Felix-Hager. Here is your official spoiler warning. Toot toot. Okay, let's get into it. Today, we're talking about the 6th episode of Season 3, Par for the Course, which is written by Ariel Carlin and directed by Paul William Downs.
That's me.
The whole reason I took this MC gig was to have as much face time as possible with all the affiliate owners who are playing the tournament. They have a huge impact on who the network picks as the next host. I have to charm them with personalized small talk and golf humor. By the way, I need 10 tasteful whole jokes.
In this episode, we deal with class, sex, and golf.
Yeah, that's great.
Big three.
That's great.
Yeah, the big three.
That's great. So yeah, Deborah has to go curry favor with some affiliates.
Which is a real thing, we should
Yes,
say.
we did a lot
Yes.
of research on
We read books and books.
books and books. We did lots of research on when Carson left, on kind of Letterman and Leno, the race between them, and to get the job. And the affiliates are a big part of who kind of is seen as the best choice for the next host. And so that was kind of how this episode idea came about.
And isn't it true that Ellen also had to sort of charm some affiliates
I think so, yeah.
in local stations to get her show picked up there?
Yes,
Yes.
because basically I think there were affiliates who weren't going to run our show because, they instead of paying to run the show, you can just go, oh, no, I'll, play Price is Right reruns or whatever. No shade to the Price is Right.
It's where we shot the late night, same stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we start this episode with an audition. Deborah is she's holding a group audition, kind of like a dance audition. Why they're doing dance, not sure. But you know what? They need to be good at choreography in her mind.
That's a rigorous audition process now that you mention it.
Oh, they have to dance
Yeah.
and they have to prepare a monologue. They have to prepare 16 bars of a song. They just have to go to a house and deliver an invitation. But Deborah's a professional and she really wants her Christmas invitations delivered by convincing elves.
Yes.
And so she has a bunch of little people who she's auditioning in her living room and which Ava finds absolutely appalling and inappropriate.
All right, everybody else, again, from the top. No!
So early in the episode, Deborah and Ava are having breakfast and they're talking about class. And
Deborah accurately calls out that Ava, thinks that they can hang out at the table, which would, of course, make the waitress not be able to turn the table over, not be able to get another check on that table during the shift.
You never waited tables, did you?
I was a hostess at Joe's American Bar and Grill at the South Shore Plaza, but I was fired after one shift for being too openly depressed.
You like to say you're a woman of the people, but you've never actually been one. If we park at this table, our waitress will not be able to turn it over before the end of the breakfast shift.
Well,
Yeah, you tried to take work away from the little people who deliver my Christmas party invitations. You wouldn't let the bellman carry your bags, and he probably lives on his tips. And now this.
Oh, God.
now, did you work at Joe's Bar and Grill at the South Shore Plaza, Jen?
So this is ripped from the headlines. I did have one shift as a hostess at Joe's American Bar and Grill at the South Shore Plaza in Braintree, Massachusetts. And then I was asked to stop coming to work at that establishment.
Fired, I think is what they call it.
Otherwise known as fired. Yeah.
And was it because you were...
It was because I didn't really have the kind of hostess smile they were looking for. And this is one of 2 jobs where I've been talked to about not smiling enough, in fact. I also...
Well, we didn't mean all the time.
Oh, actually 3 jobs. So
Yeah.
at Toasties in Union Square, I
wow.
worked behind the counter, and I was told that I needed to be nicer and smile more at the customers.
Now,
And then one time on Hacks, Lucia said I come to set and I'm not happy enough to see
I
her.
was joking.
well,
Well, no, I wasn't. Okay, hold on. I didn't say you weren't happy enough to see me. I just raised my hands in the air and I go, Jen! And I scream to the heavens.
she runs toward her and hugs her.
It's true.
and
It's really
that ener-
sweet. It's
and
really
that-
sweet.
That
It's a
energy
really
she
sweet
wanted back.
energy.
She wanted
Yeah.
it reciprocated.
I just want it once in a while.
Yeah.
I'm just not a morning person.
Oh, you think I am?
Well,
Good point.
I?
No, you're
Touche.
not. But I would say now with a child, you're more of a morning person out of necessity.
Yeah, but I'm awake in the morning, which is different than a morning person.
Okay.
You're not a morning person, but I think you have great energy in the morning.
Well, that's just because I just saw you.
Oh, see?
Oh, wow. I'm going to start getting up 2 hours earlier so that when I see you,
Oh.
it's my afternoon.
So
Okay.
while this is based in truth, like you said, a lot of research and, charming affiliates would be part of this tactic that Deborah would have to employ to get this job of a late night host. It was a great opportunity for us to feature Chris McDonald
Yes.
on the golf course because he is actually a really avid golfer, which you can tell from some of his earlier work.
And he's well known as Shooter,
Shooter McGavin.
which
So-
we have been with Shooter now in many places on Earth. And people are constantly screaming
That's
at
true.
him, Shooter!
I mean, even in Italy, people scream
Yeah.
Shooter
Yeah.
at Chris
Yeah.
McDonald.
And he loves it. And we should say that a little bit the episode was inspired by his love of golf.
Yeah.
Yes.
We try to write towards our actors' strengths and abilities.
I see what you're up to this weekend. Very shrewd.
Just here to beat you at golf.
And you do see him actually taking some nice swings and hitting some real golf balls. And I will say he also is so good at golf, he was able to skip a golf ball across the lake and make it look like he was bad.
Yeah.
You got to be good to look that bad.
That's right.
Yeah. And it was very helpful to have someone on set. I golf a little, you've golfed a little, but we're not like golf people.
I don't really know.
So
Yeah.
we didn't really know.
I
So
couldn't
it was good
fact
to
check.
have an expert
Yeah.
on the
He
set.
said, well, you wouldn't really take your next swing from here. You drop the ball over there. He dramaturged this episode as well. But, one of my favorite scenes of the episode is the scene between him and Ava at the bar.
It's Cameron Diaz's company.
Oh, good for her.
Is it good? That's what I've been wondering.
What do you mean?
Like, isn't it bad that the goal for actors now is to, be good at art so you can sell CBD lip balm or whatever? But then again, actresses have historically had their image monetized without any control over how that image was used. So maybe if this gives them more power and agency, it's a good thing.
Great.
But then again, doesn't capitalism only ultimately benefit evil rich white men, regardless of who heads any one company? So maybe it's bad.
Well-
But also, who am I to judge? I work for a giant media conglomerate. I'm just gonna go live in the woods.
On stolen land.
That was a run we had wanted to do for a while. Ava talking about this kind of very 2024 thing of how actors now it's all a path to a brand deal for things that you can sell on your Instagram. And we wanted to get that in for a while. And I think it was it used to be more that Ava was just monologuing without the interjections from Chris.
Yeah.
And then I think on the day maybe we found, or was it after the table read? Do you guys remember?
It may have been after the table.
Might have been
read.
after the
Yeah.
table read that it felt like we wanted a little more Chris. And that really then kind of brought it to the next level. I love that scene.
Yeah, it's
'cause
funny
of
for her
that.
to continually cut him off.
Yes.
As she reframes her argument and contradicts herself.
Yeah.
Yes. But I also like that he's not like, oh, God, shut up or this again. He's like fully engaged, listening and a part of the conversation.
And
Yeah.
makes a good point about stolen land.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
It's impossible to be a good person.
Right.
But as Ava says to Deborah at the very end, at least you're trying.
Yeah.
Yes. It was really nice to be able to put something into the episode that we've been wanting to put in for a while, but also have it serve this larger story of her trying to experience what it's like to be, quote unquote, member of the working class, because it also helped justify her being a caddy, which we really wanted to do. That was a funny
Yeah.
image and idea, but we
Well,
also
we
wanted to
knew
make it grounded.
was a little bit broader of an idea.
Yeah. So we wanted to ground it in what is her true emotional
Yeah.
struggle. in
We
the episode.
grounded in Ava's desire to be a good person, which I think feels very true to her character and
Yeah.
helps it feel more real. And then that scene is also so lovely because it transitions into them talking about Deborah and Ava tells him why she was so upset that day. And it's really lovely for these two people who have such a strong understanding of Deborah and a love for Deborah to be connecting over how much they care about this difficult, complicated woman.
Yeah, they you're right. They are two people who know her and love her the most.
Yeah.
She found out she didn't get the hosting gig. She's really upset.
That's what today was about. Well, It's disappointing, but she'll be all right.
I hope so.
I've known her a long time, and over these past couple of years, she's really changed. And I'm pretty sure that's right about the time you showed up, kid.
Yeah, but that was a really nice scene.
And beautifully lit, and I performed.
And then the button of the scene is Megan inviting Ava back to her room, played by the one and only Christina Hendricks.
Fabulous.
I remember that is one of my, I think maybe we're all in agreement on this, like favorite scenes of the season.
Absolutely.
Of the series, maybe.
You mean when she's invited, or you mean the pissing?
The pissing.
The pissing.
The attempted pissing.
The attempted pissing.
Do you guys remember talking about, I remember talking about it in the room.
Yeah.
I mean, there were many iterations of the scene.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thrilled with where it ended up.
Me
Just
too.
absolutely thrilled.
I was really looking forward to pissing on a caddy.
You were not gonna piss on me.
Yeah, I was.
No, you weren't.
Yes, I was. I was going to piss all over you.
You weren't gonna piss on me, no.
Oh, wow. A liberal kink shamer. I thought you people were supposed to be sex positive.
Oh my God. I would happily let a socialist pee on me.
I like how it feels so unhinged and loose, even though it was, I mean, maybe there's tiny parts of it that are improvised. Maybe I don't remember, but it just feels very fresh, real, raw.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty tightly scripted. I think the only thing they're improvising is like the back and forth when she's like, no, you weren't. Yes, I was. You know?
And it is fun that in this episode, you're at this stuffy country club at a golf tournament, and yet everybody's a little bit kinky.
Yeah.
I think that's the vibe.
A line that was cut that I really loved is after that affiliate says to Ava, "You have gorgeous hips." He said, "What size shoe are you?" We could wear oh, me too. I have very small feet. We could trade shoes. It was like very
Fully improvised.
He had some kind of strange foot fetish,
He
but
was funny.
you know, there's
He was
like
really funny.
there's the pain pigs, there's the piss pig, there's the foot fetish. There's a lot of kink going on beneath the surface.
Well, I think that tends to be the vibe of tightly wound conservative people, is if they're not living their free truths, it gets bottled up and boiled over in bizarre ways.
That's right. Not that it's bizarre. It's also quite beautiful and real.
In beautifully kinky ways.
And beautifully kinky ways.
And one thing that's really important, the key to that scene is when Ava says she would be happily pissed on by a socialist.
Yeah.
That is
Do we believe that?
100%. I
She
think
would welcome a golden shower by a socialist?
If Christina Hendricks was a socialist,
Yeah,
yes,
I think
not
if
just any
she
random
was sexually attracted to and turned on by this person and it was their kink to pee on her, if she agreed with their politics
and she was attracted to them,
and she was attracted to them,
Why
100%.
She would be open to it.
I mean, she probably would
sure.
then feel badly for the housekeeper. And so she would say, maybe let's do this in the shower.
Well, yeah.
Bye-bye, lady.
Your loss.
Oh, Paul, can we pay you a compliment?
Yes.
You directed this episode.
Well, that's not really a compliment, but yes. I did direct it. That's a fact. That's a fact, my friend.
Well,
it's really, really beautifully shot.
Sometimes a fact can be a compliment.
Oh, like you are hot.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you are beautiful.
Okay.
But what I was going to compliment, there's a shot in this episode that I absolutely love that is in the trailer of Ava and Deborah slow-mo walking up the hill on the golf course. And it's a great shot. And I think one you found on the day.
I had thought about it the day before.
Okay.
And wanted to do it and then was told no. Was told for production reasons maybe we can try and fit it in tomorrow by our incredible assistant director,
It's so funny
Rosie Jeff Rosenberg.
Incredible. That was told no by our incredible AD.
Was it day one though? Actually, did I shoot it on the first day?
No, I think you shot on the
I
second
think I shot
I
on the
think
second
you
day.
did. You thought of it and then yeah.
Yes, and we shot it. But yeah, it was a late edition. It had not been prepped.
And I love that about you. I love that. No.
She's saying it with teary eyes, but it's because she's been laughing.
No, I've been laughing. I love that you were like, I know we don't have the time, but I want to do it anyway. And you figure out a way to do it. I don't do it as much because I'm so Capricorn, but you really do it, and it rocks.
Yeah, you do it the most of the three of us because you're very like alive in the creative process. You're very in tune and tapped into it. It's alive.
That's
with
so nice.
He follows
That's
the
so
muse.
nice.
He doesn't
You
say
follow
we
the
start, we
muse.
stop. We just say we're continuing on, and she's alive. We got to chase her.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that because when you're in production, as you know, you are very scheduled. You are working with, group of people, the entire crew all has to be clued into what's happening.
Yes.
And it's very hard to throw in a curveball. And I think some directors do it, and it's not always appreciated when it's like, oh, I'm going to figure it out and just throw things at the wall. But I think it is important to have some flexibility,
For sure.
some
Yeah.
like level of like still following the fun and figuring it out if you can.
Well, that's like one of the challenges of being a showrunner is you're at this intersection of like the creative and the business. And we're lucky because there's 3 of us, so we can kind of like huddle up and get to figure it out together. But it'd be harder if you were alone.
I would say we're all pretty alive in the creative process. I appreciate the
try to
compliment.
be.
I'm going to take it, but I think that you're that way, and I think that you're that way. And
No,
I'm
I'm
looking at
asleep.
both of these women.
We try to be, but
we
it's,
try to be.
it's
We try to
hard.
be.
I think so. And I think there's times when it's harder or easier. You know, when it's hardest, I find, is when I am directing. I think it's sometimes
course.
easier when you are sitting behind the director's chair as a writer producer on the show. Or even as an actor, when you're in the scene and you're like, oh, this feels funny, I'm going to try this.
Right.
It's a little bit different than when you're directing and you're having
course.
to oversee, you know, you're steering the ship in terms of all of the time.
Yeah, and when you're directing, you are thinking about 10,000 things at
Right.
once. So it's a little hard to diagnose this tiny little thing over there when you're like thinking about composition and you're thinking about performance and you're thinking about the time I have left for this, or should I skip that shot so I can get this on the turnaround or whatever. So when you are in, I'll call it the second row, which is when you have maybe more just your writer-producer hat on, it is easier to diagnose things because you don't have so many other things clogging up your
Right.
brain.
Right. Or like think of alts because you can focus more on like joke
Yes.
writing in that moment than
Totally.
And I should say, dear listener, you may be aware of this if you have directed like you, Barbara Streisand, or if you are not Barbara. Just so you know, you're in a location like the golf course where you're shooting all exteriors. You're outside. You rely on daylight. You rely on like the time of day, and obviously, as it gets toward sundown, the light changes a lot. So you're trying to get all of your scene work done before the light is dark enough that you can't shoot, but you can't go back to the golf course because it's 150 crew members and all of your actors who are scheduled for that day there that day. That's the only day you have to do it, but you are fighting the clock. So to stop and think, how does a scene work? Or, hey, can I shoot a slow-mo sequence over the crest of a knoll is hard.
Often you have to sacrifice something else.
Right. And you might be thinking, especially if you're Barbara, you might be thinking, why haven't you thought about that before? Why didn't you come up with that before? Sometimes you have to be in the space and actually doing the thing to get, honestly, the inspiration to do something. Sometimes you have to be there in the light of day, shooting with your actors to find that thing which you could not prepare for. One of the most exciting reveals, I think, of the season happens at the end of this episode.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
After Ava says to Deborah, concluding her emotional story about the complexities of living ethically, she says to Deborah, you know, it's hell to be a good person, but at least you're trying and you have values, and that's what's important. And maybe it'll help you get 1% over what happened between you and your sister, Kathy. Ding dong, we cut to an elf delivering the Christmas invitation to Deborah's sister, Kathy Vance, played by the incomparable J. Smith Cameron.
Yes.
So lucky to have her.
Dang, that's going to be
Did you gasp, dear listener? Maybe not because she was in the trailer, but you also may have been like, whoa, oh, that's what she's playing.
Kathy Vance,
Yes?
you are cordially invited to attend Deborah Vance's Vegas Christmas Spectacular.
My sister, Deborah Vance? Is this a prank?
And now we'd like to welcome our very special guest, the incredible, brilliant costume designer, Kathleen Felix-Hager. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here.
Excited.
Thanks for keeping us decent on the set. You know,
I try.
You
I
do it.
try.
You do it.
Now, you have been with us since day one, day zero. Wow. Thank you.
Thanks
How
for
do
being.
you do it? How do you put up with us for 3 whole seasons?
Well, you put up with me.
No.
So it's
No,
unusual.
no.
We've been lucky enough to have you.
And we got to say, you have won an Emmy for your work on the show. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thanks to you three lovely people.
I was surprised you didn't bring it to the studio today. You don't travel with it?
I decided it was a
Officer.
It's a hood ornament. It's on her car. You haven't seen her pull up in the lot. Well, I probably should have led with that. Brilliant and talented and Emmy-winning costume designer.
It still seems a little crazy to me.
Now, why don't you tell our dear listeners a little bit about your background, how you got into costume design, other things you worked on.
Sure.
How you found your way to Hacks?
How I found my way to Hacks. Well, I started 30 years ago, actually, which seems like a long time ago.
Because you were babysitting then. You must have been a teenager.
No, thank you. My family was in the business, and I sort of worked with my stepfather for a long time. He was a producer. I used to read scripts for him when I was in high school. I used to break down scripts for him.
Wow.
Are you LA native?
Yes.
Okay.
But anyway, I got married and had kids fairly young. And then at a certain point in my life, I was getting divorced, had to get a job. And so my stepdad said, I'm doing this movie, come and work in the movie. I was like, well, what do I do? I have no idea what to do. And he said, well, you can work in the costume department. So I interviewed with the costume designer. He literally looked at my hands and he said, okay, you have short nails. You look like you can work. So just do whatever anyone tells you to do. So that's what I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have short nails.
He just looked at my
That is so
nails.
interesting.
I don't
Would
know,
you have
but
acted? Would he have put you in the movie?
I guess it was like he figured I was scrappy. I don't know. That I could just get down and dirty. And
in some auditions they make actors hold up their hands, so it might be the same thing.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So the movie was Waterworld, which we shot.
Right.
Heard of it, Kevin Costner.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's sort of started the journey, and I sort of fell in love. It was like this very, I just was like a sponge. I just did whatever anyone told me to do. Worked with the assistant costume designer, did fittings. I just did everything anyone told me to do.
Right?
Yeah, so everything. And then I just fell in love with it, and I just kept working and kept doing it. And here I am at the table with you guys.
And, people often talk about how there's Deborah, the character, there's Ava, the character, there's also the sequin as a character.
That's right.
And that, I think, we owe to you. So when you, not to jump from Waterworld to Hacks, but when you read this script, what did you immediately feel like you understood her style and her fashion? And were you thinking about anybody in particular or specific inspiration?
I saw her so clearly in my head. Deborah Vance, I actually based off my grandmother,
I love
who was
that.
a very sort of flamboyant woman who always had a cigarette and her hair was dyed, and she liked a little bit of flash. So I think she's no longer with us, but she would have greatly appreciated Deborah Vance's style.
I think a part of her lives on then.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, sometimes there's a few pieces of my grandmother's that I actually use on Deborah.
Okay, we need to know what they are.
Oh.
Just some jewelry pieces.
Oh, nice.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because I also know that there's a fur coat that's featured that is also a personal.
That's actually my personal coat, which is bizarre, but yes, yeah.
But I will say that from we met you and you had worked on Veep, and that's how you came to us.
And Getting On, one of my personal
that's
favorite
true.
shows.
Yeah.
And also in the HBO family.
Yes.
Thank you.
And, we immediately loved you. And you were so clued into Deborah in a way that really I think, we talk a lot, and we can get into this, about Ava's fashion, and that's closer to our sense of style. But, for Deborah, it was just so dialed in, and you really helped bring this character to life from day one. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. It was, I'd worked with Jean briefly. She came and did a guest spot on Veep with us. So I had known her. So it was fun to work with her. But going back, first season was smack in the middle of COVID, which also was a crazy situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But in a weird way, I think it sort of helped me to just have something other than COVID to focus on.
Totally.
Right?
Totally,
So it was very healing and inspirational, and kind of saved me in a sense, to be able to be creative during that weird, crazy time.
One thing that I really like about your work is that it's very well observed. It's very real. When you watch other shows that you've done, like Getting On or Veep, it is what these people would be wearing. And that's true in Hacks. And it's also interesting that we and you reuse clothes because characters have a closet. And so I do like seeing clothes that repeat in the show.
Yeah.
But this particular episode was a real departure for Deborah because she's on a golf course for a lot of it.
Yeah.
So talk about finding golf wear because, that's got to be tricky to make it look cute and alluring because part of Deborah's goal in this episode is to woo and in a way seduce a lot of these affiliates.
Yes.
A lot of these
Men.
small media conglomerate owners. So what was this particular episode like in terms of finding clothes, trying on clothes, figuring out clothes?
It was fun. I had a great time doing it. I decided that the best way to convey that sort of sense of Deborah Vance on the golf course was through color.
Mm-hmm.
Bright pinks and her leopard and all of those things. And, and originally she had wanted skirts.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I did
And
not
we
know
had
that.
some golf skirts, but by the time we ended up filming, it was quite cold.
It was,
So
yeah.
she asked for pants.
Well, we
at
will
that
say
point.
Jean does get cold.
She does get very cold.
Yes.
And
That is an unseen part of your work, which is all of the layering and all of the thermals that go under and are like often tucked underneath clothes that
Right.
even I wear.
She
Even I wear
has
thermals in the show.
Yeah, thermals. She has heat pads on her. She has hot water bottles shoved up on her coats half
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
She gets
Right,
cold.
you have to think about like the creative, but then you're also like the practical of keeping Jean at 115 degrees at all times.
I know. I
Yeah.
mean, even like Hannah, when she was in her caddy outfit, we had her in short sleeves, and you're playing Vegas,
Yeah,
right? So
yes.
so she had to end up at one point. I think we put a long sleeve
Yeah.
thermal under because it was quite cold out there.
Yeah. Let's talk about that caddy outfit while we're here.
Oh, yeah.
I thought she was the chicest caddy I've
Yeah,
ever
she
seen.
absolutely was.
makes everything look
Yeah.
Paris Fashion
Yeah.
Week.
I know. I think when I know I sent pictures of her in that outfit, and there was, whatever you said, I think you like, great, it's fine. But when she came out that morning, you were all like, she looks too great. Like,
Yeah.
she looks too.
She looked good.
That's
Yeah.
right. I
So
forgot
cute.
the great hat moment.
Oh,
Because we
right.
scrambled for a
So
visor.
that visor wasn't necessarily planned for, but
No.
then that was a last minute find.
because she looked
Yes.
too chic.
She did look
Right,
good.
we wanted her to look
a little more
dorky
comedic.
and silly and
And then
comedic.
we turned around the little caddy.
Yeah.
bus,
Which was fun
so-
because it literally read caddy because it said caddy.
Yeah.
There was the word
Yeah.
across her chest, which is very funny.
Also, your vest is on backwards.
Oh, I like it like that. Balenciaga, it's fashion.
A really funny reference when Deborah comes out in all black. She goes, black on black, Billie Jean King. Not working, which is fun.
Because that was the thing too, right? We had to, in this story, show the transition from when Deborah's feeling herself and trying to make inroads with all of these affiliates. And then when she learns in this episode that she's not getting the job,
Yes.
she turns.
She turns. She shows up that day serious. She's in black. She also has not like her sort of more relaxed Deborah hair.
Mhm.
So
That's right.
that's also been a really interesting working relationship between Jen Hair and myself and her Keith, the makeup artist, because the three of us are always talking about, not only do I show you guys what Deborah's wearing, but I show them all the time so that they know, so they can think about hair and
Right.
the appropriateness of that hair. But I thought that was a great moment when she showed up in her sort of shorter hair also
Yes.
in the black outfit.
She
She's
means
in mourning.
business. She's in mourning, but and she means business.
She's serious.
She's
Yeah.
there to kick some ass because she is not happy.
Not happy.
Yeah, so she's not trying to flirt her way into a job
No.
anymore.
We did put her, and no one really saw them, but we did put Deborah in lacy bras when she was in her golf outfit, just if she unzipped it a tiny bit. And it was more that she knew she had them on.
Right.
So that she knew that she was like, in this world, like, she wears lacy bras.
Right.
Okay.
So
And
that
you know what?
it made sense for her, like, to have that black
I love
lacy
that
bra.
character detail.
Well,
We
I think a
didn't
lot
even
of
know.
times,
Yeah.
right, you can be wearing a big chunky sweater, and if you have a lacy bra on underneath,
Yeah.
I've heard
Yeah.
you can feel sexy.
You
know?
can.
So, and it feels like Deborah, especially in her trying to, curry favor with all of these affiliates, would want to feel sexy and feel good.
Yes.
And so even if it was her hidden armor, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Now let's talk a little bit about Ava's clothing. Ava, we really always talked about Hannah wanting to feel very super contemporary. She's in her mid-20s, I guess mid to late now. Maybe she's 27
I guess
now?
she's like
26,
I
27.
think of her
28.
as what Hannah's age is.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
I think she's
okay.
26, 27.
27.
Okay. Talk a little bit about the approach to Ava's wardrobe.
Well, she definitely was the trickier character for me. I saw Deborah very clearly at the beginning. Ava was, like we said, like you just said, like a work in progress. And I think that's sort of apt for who she is as a character and her age anyway, because in your 20s, you sort of are a work in progress. I always think of Ava as like, she's a consumer, but not an over-consumer. So she is very conscious about her purchases, and like she does shop vintage. She reuses her clothes. Like she might buy a very expensive jacket, but she'll wear it for a really long time.
Right.
So I think she's really thoughtful about what she wears and intentional. But I love her style. I mean, I get a lot of inspiration from the two of you ladies at this table.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there have been pieces of ours that Ava's worn on the show, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got to talk about the cherry on top, okay, which is at the end of the episode, Deborah has had this indiscretion. She slept with Tony Goldwyn's character, Bob Lipka. And it kind of cracks open for her a little bit of considering her sister and the history of what might have happened in her sister sleeping with her husband. And she decides to invite her to Christmas. So we see one of the elves that she's auditioned in the beginning arrive at the door. And that costume is completely custom, right?
Yes.
And you drew that original sketch.
Yes.
I drew the original sketch. I mean, I showed it to the three of you.
It's so
good.
And
Lucia was like, "Yeah, go for it."
I
guess I don't know if you knew what was going on. But
No, I did. I think I remember it was. I guess it was so much better than I thought it needed to be. That's why I was like, I'm sure. Go,
I mean, it was so, and also the sketch was really good.
Yeah,
it looks like you went to design
I know,
school.
you're a very good artist.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun to do. So I did the sketch, and we, sourced fabrics and the whole thing. And I just thought it was so fun to see the elves from the beginning just are sort of just regular.
In audition clothes.
Audition clothes. Right. And then Deborah loves Christmas. So why wouldn't she have the most elaborate elf
Absolutely.
ever?
100%.
I mean, you saw her Christmas invitation was that crazy diorama musical box. So yeah. And we should really give a shout out to our prop master, Melody Miller, and her team who built that invitation, which is really beautiful and has a fold out cutout of Deborah's house.
To scale replica.
Beautiful.
Really good.
Incredible work.
In fact, it was so good that J. Smith Cameron on the day said to me, make sure you get an insert shot of that. You need a close on that. You got to really show it off.
We didn't do an insert shot, but I think you get the effect.
I said to her, we don't have time, but thank you, yes. That is, I would if I could, but we were shooting that scene and scenes from the next episode, which we will not spoil right now on the podcast. But
at the same time.
We were shooting at the same time and running all around. Kathleen, this was such a pleasure to have you. It was so nice to sit down and talk.
Well, thank you for
a little bit more
me.
in depth, a little bit more beneath the blouse, as it were.
Oh,
that's probably not right.
No, it's good.
No,
I
that's
think it
good.
is. Is it good?
It's
It's excellent. Okay, see,
Maybe
that's
I'll
what
steal
happens.
that for my podcast.
You should. Oh, beneath the blouse.
Actually, that would be great.
That's a great
title
podcast.
of your podcast
That's a
about
great
costume designing.
podcast.
Beneath
Coming
the blouse.
soon on Pineapple Street Studios.
You can watch other media and talk about the clothes and what you think. Good, bad. No.
And that is our episode. This has been the official Hacks podcast with Lucia Aniello, Paul W. Downs, and Jen Statsky. This podcast is a production of Max and Pineapple Street Studios. Our executive producers are Gabrielle Lewis, Barry Finkel, and Jay Ann Barry. Our producers are Melissa Akiko Slaughter and Ben Goldberg. Darby Maloney is our editor. This episode was mixed by Hannes Brown. Pineapple's head of sound and engineering is Raj Makija. And Pineapple's senior audio engineers, Marina Pais and Pedro Alvira. Javier Cruces engineered this episode. Hi, Javi. You can watch every episode of Hacks on Max. Special thanks to Kenya Reyes, Aaron Kelly, and Michael Gluckstadt from the Max podcast team. Big special thanks to Kathleen Felix-Hager for joining us today on the show. We'll be back next week to talk all about episode 7. See you then.
Okay, that was solid, but on the next one, you're gonna wanna avoid the slope. Or maybe you wanna aim for the slope so the ball rolls. You definitely wanna do something with the slope. The slope is a huge part of our lives right now.